Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be with you. Thanks for having me.
If you don't mind, I'd love to start with your visit to South Carolina State University on Friday and being the commencement speaker. You want to give us a hint as to what the class of 2021 will hear from you?
Well, they're going to hear about why it's so important that we have strong HBCUs across America. I was able to make sure we provided for $5.8 billion in additional aid to HBCUs. Now, one of the best HBCUs is Delaware State in Delaware. I got that. But I've also been to the HBCU. I'm going to be there on Friday. My good friend and one of our great leaders, Jim Clyburn, is receiving an award that day, and I've been asked to do the commencement speech and present him the award. And so I'd almost walk to South Carolina to be able to do that for Jim. But we're going to be talking about what the opportunities are and why we have to do everything from making sure there's economic opportunity and also deal with voting rights. Voting rights. That's how I got involved in politics. And for years, I was chairman of the Judiciary Committee. I was able to, my last time as a senator, as chairman, to get it extended for 25 years. And even got Strom Thurmond to vote to extend it 25 years. In the meantime, a Supreme Court case came along and said, you don't need any more pre-clearance. The states that were historically prejudiced against allowing or preventing African Americans to vote had to be pre-cleared to make sure they didn't come up with any other games. Well, the John Lewis legislation that we're trying to pass would in fact change that, would say, no, you need to go back to pre-clearance. You have to do that. And so it's really important because you see what's happening all over the country, the attempt to keep African Americans, make it harder for them to vote, not easier to vote.
When I spoke with Congressman Clyburn yesterday, he was very excited about the opportunity to march 6 decades after he graduated from South Carolina State University. And with that in mind, the chance to march, the chance to turn the tassel, he extended the invitation to you to be the commencement speaker. Can you tell us a little bit about that conversation?
Well, I just said didn't take long. I said yes. Because first of all, he's one of the really great leaders in the country. I mean, for real. He's a man of enormous integrity, as was his wife, who, God rest her soul, was so deeply involved. And Jim has been a champion for all the things that matter, not just HBCUs and education generally, but everything from making sure, for example, Jim was the guy that enabled me to convince to get legislation passed saying that there was on the farm programs how African-American farmers have been left behind. Well, we've changed that. Now we're making up for that. And there's just a lot of things that Jim's been so much a leader, but he has a real conscience. He has great integrity and a conscience, and he is not hesitant to make his views known, which I like a lot too.
Mr. President, we are just 11 days away from Christmas, and there are still concerns about supply chain issues across the nation. Do you feel comfortable speaking to parents and telling them that gifts are not going to be a problem for Santa on December 24th?
Well, they're not going to be. The problem is they're going to be available. It's going to cost you money, or it's going to cost Santa some money. But all kidding aside, there are problems with the supply chain as it relates to food, relates to used cars, relates to oil. For example, I was able to release, as my authority as president, 50 million barrels of oil from the oil reserve, we call it the SPOR we have, and convince some other countries I've dealt with to release some of their oil as well to drive down the price of gasoline. For example, now it's below $3 a gallon in Colombia for a first time in a while. We're driving it down all over the country, and food prices, particularly our poultry and beef and pork, are up because there's a concentration of of the outfits that, in fact, take the pork and the beef, et cetera, and turn it into the food that gets on the shelf. And there's a concentration that's too severe, and it raises prices. For example, Tyson Foods made an extra over $1 billion the last quarter. When asked why, they're able to raise prices because there's so few competitors. They're all the big guys. And so I have legislation that I have an executive order I signed to go in and take a look at. They should hold hearings on whether or not the concentration, essentially violations of antitrust, the concentration is too much, raising the price artificially for people. In addition to that, there's a lot of other things that cause prices to go up having to do with COVID, because we import an awful lot of things from around the world. For example, there are two seaports in California, in Southern California, where 40% of all the product that comes into the United States goes through those ports. Well, when you have people shutting down factories that have precursor materials for them in Southeast Asia, then the prices go up. And in addition to that, when the ports are only open for 5 days a week, instead of 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you have these containers piling up on the docks and not getting to the market. So I met with everyone from Walmart and all the big distributors, as well as FedEx, to make sure that we can get those products, those big container ships, the containers off the ships, on the dock, and off the docks into the stores and the warehouses. And that's one of the other reasons why there's enough product now. We still have to do more, but there's a significantly more product out there for people to be able to go out and buy their Christmas gifts.
As families plan to gather over the holidays, a lot of people are still very concerned about the Omicron variant. And sadly, it does not appear that the vaccination rates are what medical experts were hoping they would be at this point. What do you say to folks watching today who haven't been vaccinated and may not see the reason or the importance of doing it?
Well, you hear a lot from my home state as well as yours and other states saying, well, I have my freedom. I have the right to not get vaccinated. I think of it in terms of patriotism. You're out there and you're not vaccinated. This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated, You have in South Carolina 55.5% of all the people fully vaccinated, and the nationwide 65%. But those who aren't vaccinated are the ones that continue to spread the diseases. And so we should think of it in a patriotic duty, whether you're working in a supermarket to make sure you have been vaccinated so you're not spreading anything to anyone else, or you're not likely to get the virus, and Delta still is the worst, is the biggest problem. And what's happening is otherwise the rest of the economy is beginning to really grow. Unemployment rate in your state in October was below 4%, 3.9%. Nationally, it's 4.2% and going down. Our gross domestic product is growing, et cetera. And so the only thing that's going to stop us is vaccinations. And here's the deal. They're free. They're available. You can walk into your local drugstore and get them. You can move, and some churches are providing it. There's a whole range of areas where you can get a free vaccination. And if you haven't gotten your booster shot, if your last vaccination, you're fully vaccinated, quote unquote, and was 6 months ago, get your booster shot. It's overwhelming protection. And so it just seems to me that if you have and what we've been able to do, we now have vaccines for everyone 5 years and older. 5 years old and older. And so it's really a game changer. And I don't understand why people are unwilling to, other than it's almost become a political issue. Like if you're a conservative and Republican, you're not for that's not fair, because a lot of Republicans do get vaccinated. But this idea that I'm not going to be told what to do. Well, it seems to me that, if you have any serious problem that is communicable, you should at least be tested before you walk into somebody else's home, or you walk into the church, or sit next to in the pew on Sunday next to somebody. You should be cognizant of their health, their safety, their responsibility, their health. And so I just think that it's just not very responsible. It's not, I get told, Biden, you're trying to take away my right. Why don't you think about being patriotic? Help the rest of the country, because the people who are spreading the disease are basically the unvaccinated. We got to take care of it.
You managed to get some agreement on the bipartisan infrastructure law. What does that mean to South Carolinians?
Well, it's going to mean a lot. For example, everything from, a lot of your state does not have broadband. And, and a lot of moms and dads have had to be on be able to get in the internet so the kid can do their homework. How many times you drive by a fast food restaurant and see people sitting out in the cars, not ordering food, but getting access to broadband so their kid can. This is the United States of America. Why in God's name do you have to go to a fast food restaurant to be able to work off of their broadband? So it provides broadband. It also going to do something on fairly familiar with South Carolina, not unlike Delaware, a lot of shoreline. We have a lot of problems with lead pipes. You have a lot of problem with water that is contaminated. This is going to replace all those pipes. All the money's in there to make sure that you're going to be able to replace all those pipes so you can be certain of the 400,000 schools out there where the kid turns on the faucet or goes to the water fountain, what he or she is drinking is pure water. They're not going to get sick. In addition to that, you have to, along your coastline, when the flooding that's occurred, you can't build back to what it was before. And so let's say the flood comes in and it's 2 feet above the road level, washes it out. You got to build it 3 feet above, because it's not going to get better. The environment's not going to get a lot better, but it can get a lot worse. So you got to build back better. And you have a lot of bridges that need repair in South Carolina. You have a whole lot of things that have to be done. And guess what? It's going to create millions of jobs nationwide, thousands of jobs in South Carolina. And these aren't jobs paying $7 an hour. These are jobs paying the prevailing wage, $40 an hour, be able and more, being with health care and the coverage. And it's allow people to live and my dad used to say, he was a high school graduate. My dad used to say, Joey, all I'm looking for is a little bit of breathing room. Just a little bit of breathing room. Or for example, right now, if you're a mom or a dad, you have one of those hundreds of thousands of children have type 1 diabetes. Guess what? Your insulin for that child not going into a coma or, God forbid, dying costs somewhere around between $400 and $1,000 a month, depending on how much you need to take. Well, the proposal I have in the new legislation says nobody pays more than $35 for the monthly. And by the way, it costs the drug companies $10 to make this. Nothing's changed since then. Why in God's name is it costing all this money? And a lot of it has to do with allowing people to reclaim their dignity. I can't imagine being a dad or mom, knowing my kid needs this and I have no insurance and no way to afford it. And just, not only is your child's health in jeopardy, but you're stripped of your dignity. And and we can do this without raising taxes on anybody making less than $400,000 a year. I don't know. It just frustrates me. As you can tell, I'm sorry to go on.
No need to apologize, Mr. President. And as we wrap up this afternoon, the final question, as we look forward to your visit to South Carolina on Friday, what do you say
Good. I
to
look forward
folks
to meeting you.
who may not be supporters of Joe Biden? Why is your visit important for South Carolina as a whole and not just South Carolina State University Bulldogs?
Well, look, I got involved in public life because of civil rights and civil liberties issues, and coming from a state that was a good state but had a lot of problems. I think that I'm not sure Joe Biden's visit is important, except to the extent that I think we got to come together. I don't think we can continue to be red and blue. I really mean it. I think, look, we're a purple nation. This is not about, we're all Americans. And I think if we sort of, and I know I got criticized heavily when I was running for the presidency and getting the nomination, even in South Carolina, which I did very well in, thanks to Jim and others. But the whole notion that I said, I'm running for 3 reasons. One, to restore the soul of the country, sense of decency and honor, treat each other with respect. Don't talk to each other like we're talking to each other. Secondly, to build the backbone of this country back up, and that's the middle class and working class folks. Wall Street, I'm not anti-Wall Street, but Wall Street didn't build America. Hard-working middle class people built America, and unions built the middle class. And thirdly, I said, which I really got clobbered by everybody for saying, but I still believe it. We have to unify the country. Democracies cannot function long unless you can reach consensus. And compromise is not a dirty word. And so we got to get back to that, talking to one another, getting engaged like we did before. I just did Bob Dole on his deathbed asked me to do his eulogy. Bob Dole was a leading Republican. But guess what? We disagreed on a number of things, but we were friends. We treated each other with respect. We got to get back to that. Democracies are in jeopardy if we don't start working together.
Mr. President, thank you so much, and we'll see you on Friday.
Thank you very much.